I've often said this, if you're Meghan Markle, seemingly you're never very happy for long. It doesn't matter what you've been given, what you've had, or indeed what you've received, as we saw in a short tenure inside the British monarchy. Nothing was ever right. And when you think about it, these bullying claims, these difficult staff members, nobody can be all wrong. I mean, it's all very well her coming out and saying, this is how I work and it's different and all that sort of stuff. See, clearly people could not stand working for Meghan Markle. It must have been incredibly difficult. That's part and parcel of the problem. But you see, when you have been cosseted and told you're wonderful and a princess from a very early age, and this has probably been the problem, not really, I would suggest, of her mother, for obvious reasons, but for that of her father. Literally he created a time bomb. And now what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. But this is what she's finding in relation, of course, to His Majesty the King, King Charles III, as ever. Let me explain. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And by the way, thank you for enjoying the story about, of course, the evergreen that is Wallis Simpson. It's a funny thing. Somebody pointed out in the comments, and you're right, that when you look at the pictures, sometimes, I don't know if it's just morphiness because you and I see so many pictures of these people, but you can see elements of Meghan Markle there. Perhaps she studied her far more than even we actually realised, And as I said to you before, I don't really have an axe to grind or anything with Wallis, because I think different time, different era. But I can understand that obviously she saw opportunes and thought, well, can I get them? But even she couldn't get them, despite being married, of course, to an ex-king. It's a little bit like, of course, the ex-royal, that is the Duchess of Sussex. You see, Meghan apparently is literally up in flames over this particular bombshell. You see, as you know, she thought she got on incredibly well with King Charles. They had very similar interests. Of course, she'd studied him greatly and decided his interests were now her interests. And exactly the way she did with the Queen, you study somebody almost like your homework and say, they're going to like me because we're going to have so much in common. That's part and parcel of the deal. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because as I told you previously, Meghan Markle has reached out to His Majesty the King because she believes the only way back, politically for them at least, is to get back in with him. And she feels that actually she should have been given some support in dealing with his youngest son. Not just because, of course, of the mental health issues, but other issues that even we, or the inside members of the royal family, know about. You get the picture. So the reason why apparently she's up in arms right now is simply this. This is all to do with the fact that, well, she found out, of course, on the mainstream news that none other than Donald Trump had received a personal written letter back to him congratulating him on his second stint as the President of the United States, the 47th President. And according to a source inside the Montecito camp, Meghan was literally, incandescent with rage, simply because she's pointed out, how come he has the time to write back to him, but not family members? Now, we know how Meghan's family members' writing happened with her father, Thomas Markle, and how the letter ended up in the newspaper. So you could understand exactly why the King, who's still receiving treatment for cancer, might be a little bit reticent to put pen to paper to respond back to Markle. But it's never good enough, you see. And as Harry apparently was told recently at an event, do you still see your family? Apparently his words back were, well, it's up to them. They need to get in touch with us. So there's no climbing down, but according to sources behind the scenes, Meghan, whether Harry knows it or not, has tried to reach out to His Majesty the King and is simply furious that he has time for President Trump, a person that she has no time for, but simply no time for her, even though, of course, he walked her halfway down the aisle at St. George's Chapel on her wedding day. Confusing or what? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.